Okay, it's 7 o'clock. So. Okay, folks, it's 7 o'clock, and this is the Charter Township of Plymouth Board of Trustees regular meeting for Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Stewart. Here. Trustee Monahan.
Here.
Trustee Kermey.
Here.
Trustee Buckley.
Here.
Clerk Vorba here. Treasurer Dorshevitz.
Here.
Supervisor Heisler.
Here.
All present, we have a quorum.
Pledge of Allegiance, how about Lieutenant Ryan Krebs? Thank you, Lieutenant Krebs. So the good news tonight is I'm losing my voice. So plan accordingly. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Motion by Audrey Monahan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Treasurer Dorshevitz. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approval of the consent agenda. This includes a storm drain agreement for St. John's. And with that in mind, hearing no comments or questions, then we'll need a roll call vote on that, Mr. Clerk.
I would need a motion to approve
Yeah.
the consent agenda for March 12th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, motion's made by Clerk Forbes, seconded by Trustee Monahan. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heisler.
Yes.
Treasurer Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Trustee Buckley.
Yes.
Trustee Kermey.
Yes.
Trustee Monahan.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Very good. Item E is public comment, limited to 3 minutes.
Did we go over minutes?
No, we didn't.
Well, they were improved in the consent agenda.
Because there were a couple of, I've never, in 3.5 years, asked for a change in the minutes.
Okay.
And I
please-
did talk with my neighbor Laura Simpson, and I have talked with Denisha.
Okay.
So if okay.
Just go ahead and tell us what they are, we'll note.
Supervisor Maurice Breen.
What page are you on?
Breen, page 8.
Page 8. And so it was just a spelling.
And then on page 9, there was a micro picture of the library. And I've given these small changes to Denisha, that our library be considered a community center with internet services to seniors, provided on the second floor by a very capable assistant, Bruce Coldus, who was hired away when he retired from the head of IT at HFCC, Henry Ford Community College. So I just wanted to add those couple of changes and give
So noted.
proper credit to Maurice Breen,
Yes,
who started the recycling bins back in the late 1980s.
good. So noted.
Very good then. We'll move on back to public comment. Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. So this is the purchase of a new storage area network.
Wait a minute. I thought we had public comment. We skipped it.
No,
We
we
skip
didn't.
it. I've
Oh,
asked
nobody wants to
twice.
speak.
Nobody wants
Yeah.
to speak today.
All right.
So, purchase of a new storage area network. So, Bob Jenks is our IT director, and with him tonight is Ken Rotena. He is our outside IT consultant, and we also have Treasurer Dorshevitz, who himself is also another IT whiz kid, and
I wouldn't go that far.
he wouldn't. It's not so much a kid anymore, but they're certainly available to answer any questions. This is kind of a technology learning experience, I think, for all of us. So, Bob, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Supervisor, members of the
Can he?
board.
I can't.
Is your light on?
The light is on.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
Okay.
So you guys have seen the request, and you've seen the word, or the acronym SAN, and that's an acronym for Storage Area Network. And what that actually is a physical piece of hardware. Think of something that's like 7 inches high, 19 wide, and about 30 deep. Okay, just to give you an idea there. And it's basically filled with disk drives. So it's used for a pool of shared disk, basically. So we've been running a SAN here at the township for the last 8 years, and we're on our second one right now. This is a critical part of our network infrastructure. It is considered the most important component that we have. And the reason for that is it holds all the township production data. So for the financial systems, tax, assessing, water billing, all the data for all those applications and more. So it was discovered just before Christmas that our current SAN was no longer supported due to the company is no longer in operation. So this is why this is not a budgeted item, and you know we planned on this thing going for another couple of years anyway. So at this point, if there's an issue with the current unsupported unit, we have nobody to support it.
So what year was the current one installed?
3 years ago? So at this point, the current SAN is still running, but we can't really say, you know, how long, if we're gonna have any issues with it. At that point, so in my opinion, we need to proactively replace the current SAN with the recommended solution. So we had a team of myself, like Kurt said, Kurt, Trustee Dorshevitz, and Ken Ratena from Knight Technology. So we've been going over this since the beginning of January. We've had, you know, the team has considered other options, and the consensus is to replace it with this pure storage option. We've had multiple meetings and discussions with the vendors and the manufacturer actually over that time. So the request before you is to purchase a new supported pure storage SAN to replace our current unsupported unit, as well as purchase other items, accessories, technical assistance needed to put the new SAN into production.
Just to add a couple of comments to that, the challenge with this particular piece of infrastructure is that they're built to order. So if this were to, it's not a problem until it's a problem. And if it were to go down, we could be in a situation where we could be running, you know, in a severely disadvantaged mode for a couple of months. So, you know, for that reason, I think it's probably important that we replace it before it crashes on us.
And as far as the cost item, what we can do is we have a series of budget adjustments that are scheduled for our next board meeting, so we can take care of this at that time.
How long is it
Where's
gonna
the
take?
budget? Oh, go ahead.
How long is it gonna take to acquire this? Is it ready to go, or?
They say it's 2 to 6 weeks
Okay. We'll keep our fingers
lead
crossed.
time.
Funding would come from fund balance, would be my guess, but ultimately that'll be the finance director's decision.
Did you get a quote on what the system would cost? I know you've asked for up to 125.
Yeah, you know, in the packet there, the fourth page, I guess, in this section.
189.
Thank you.
Kind of has the breakdown.
It's only one quote.
Yes, this is a quote. This is a Sourcewell purchasing contract quote. We had other quotes from the same company, but we had them come down, I don't know, $7,000, $8,000
But competitors
original.
didn't quote?
Not on this device, no.
And what's the reason for that?
I think it comes down to the speed that we need to move on this, I think. And I believe the purchasing policy indicates if it's contract,
It's a contract?
yeah, this is the,
Normally, I would
The sand
expect us
is
to get
on a
multiple
contract.
quotes to avoid the situation we just had. I want to know the name of the company that went out of business. What's their name? What's the name of the manufacturer of this? And tell me a little bit about their company.
so this is Pure Storage. The old one was Violin. I don't know, Ken, if you have any.
Yes.
Sure, yeah. About Pure Storage?
You know, things like what are your annual sales? Are you a publicly traded company? How long you been in business? Those kinds of things.
Yeah, so I'm not.
You're
I'm
a
not-
distributor?
No, I've been working with Bob since 2002, running the township
Yep.
infrastructure with Bob. We're an MSP. So the sand that has expired was by a company called Violin. That company is no longer. So Pure Storage is one of the largest sand manufacturers, and they're huge. So they're not going away. So they're worth $2.75 billion. They have 12,000 plus global customers. They're massive. The state uses them. My friends at GM use them. There's a lot of companies that use Pure Storage. So that is the solution we went with this, because it is monitored 24/7. So even while we're sleeping, they'll find out about the problem, and they would notify Bob.
So you are a consultant to us or a salesperson for the product? I'm confused.
No, I'm a consultant, but I also work with all products from all manufacturers. But we did the research, and Pure is the best solution that we would find for this
I
environment.
think what
How
he's
are you getting
asking is,
paid?
what he's trying to find out is if you personally get a cut of this.
No,
No.
I'm here as a fiduciary to the township and with Bob.
Okay, so you are not earning on a commission on
No.
this? All right. And you have confidence that this company has some longevity in the industry, unlike the one from 3 years ago?
Yes.
Did you recommend the one from 3 years ago?
Yes.
All right.
And that company was very big. It was purchased by a capital,
Private equity?
right?
Okay.
Which then they stole the IP or acquired it, sold it, and scuttered the company. So they took the intellectual property, sold it to another vendor, and then laden the company with debt, and it went under. That's,
You know, it happens. Generally, this stuff happens, and if it wasn't if it was an off-the-shelf product, there's maybe 3 or 4 large manufacturers of sands. Who else? HP, Dell.
so you've got HP, you've got Dell, you've got NetApp, you've
NetApp.
got storage networks. There's a whole bunch of them out there.
Yeah.
But the biggest ones, the ones that everybody puts their the biggest and the best, it's Pure, because it's monitored 24/7, US support, next day parts. The other benefit of this is we don't have to ever really replace the sand. The chassis and everything is all covered under all their support. They upgrade it, doesn't cost us anything. We never have to do another migration. If the box gets too old, they will replace it wholesale as part of the contract. So,
Your better judgment said competitive quotes were not necessary.
well, so things are a little different in this scale in the IT world. So what happens is when you want to purchase, say, a large SAN or a large amount of servers, when the vendor who's selling the product, they call the manufacturer, and what they do is they lock it.
Register
So
the deal.
Another vendor can't go to the manufacturer and say, hey, I'm gonna sell it to Plymouth because it's already been locked by this vendor. So you would have to wait for that lock to end, and then you can go to the other vendor, and then they can submit the thing to the manufacturer to get their discount. It's basically, that's how it works now. We had to already do this with the servers we did last year, and we had to wait an additional 90 days to make all of that happen because of the lock.
Sounds like a
Another
very bizarre,
reseller-
non-competitive practice. that they
Another
put in.
reseller can sell it. This is how it works. So another reseller can sell it, but
Right.
whoever registers the deal gets additional points. And it's because they get additional points, they can pass that through to the customer. And that's how the industry works. It's worked that way for 40 years, 50 years. But eventually, but it doesn't mean that another reseller couldn't sell it, but they wouldn't be able to sell it at the same price.
Right, so you wouldn't get the level of discount that we're already getting. And Bob hammered the seller for the sand to get additional prices down.
Well, I think it would have been helpful to have this written up. I mean, like for the ambulance, we had everything about it, you know, there's this lacking in detail here. I'm glad you're speaking about it, but it would have been nice to have it like written out.
What she's talking about is the police department, capital appropriations check sheet.
It's an emergency.
Yeah, but still, the information would have been helpful to have.
All
I'm not
right,
exactly
This is
sure
a
what
huge
you would
expense.
expect them to do, frankly.
Okay.
Well, just to
mean,
speak
they'd have
what
to
he's
chart
saying
it-
here,
they'd have to
could have
chart
been
it
on
out or
paper for us to read ahead
but
of time.
what is the budget offset, since we generally would want to know?
There's no budget offset.
No
sir.
budget
It's-
offset.
It's coming out of out of our fund balance, and a final determination will be made by the finance director. All right.
Mr. Supervisor.
Do we have any other questions? No. Let's get moving.
I move to approve Resolution 2024-03-12-11, authorizing the IT Director, Bob Jenks, to issue purchase orders in the amount that not to exceed $125,000 to purchase and install the pure storage sands solution, including miscellaneous parts and supplies, external labor, maintenance plans, and electrical contractor work.
Motion's made by Clerk Forva. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Monahan. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Clerk Borba, yes. Trustee Kermy.
Yes,
Trustee Buckley.
Yes,
Trustee Monahan.
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz.
Yes,
Treasurer Dorchevitz, I apologize. Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisler.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Very good.
technically,
Yes.
we're all trustees.
I know, yeah.
All right, so next up, we have the review of the draft design and cost consideration for a potential new Fire Station 2. We have a flash drive that encompasses the entire presentation. I'd like Chief Connolly and our consultants to come forward. I think it's pretty self-explanatory in the cover memo. So what I'd like the consultants to do is to introduce themselves, and Mr. Colas, you know, we'll get to you. You can have a seat. Yeah, we'll get to you. I like the enthusiasm. So our consultants, I'd like them to introduce themselves, and then we can start going through the slides. Treasurer Dorchevitz has the slides, and just ask him to advance as you wish. We also have Tom Colas here tonight. Stay seated. And Tom is our bond counsel from Miller Canfield, in the event that we have any money or financing-related questions. So, gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you. My name is David Gasson with Partners in Architecture. Also with me is Joe Valeri. I am principal in the project, and Joe is project manager, designer, and planner. It's a collaborative process, so it's more than just us. But we're here tonight to share with you the progress that we've made since last time we were here. Actually, it was just more of an introduction last time. And also to receive your input, most importantly. That's what we'd like to do today. We started last fall, and during that process, we've visited the site multiple times to look at the site, its challenges, its opportunities, and also evaluated the building in terms of its conditions and more or less the deficiencies. We've had many meetings with supervisors as well as the chief, and more importantly, firefighters to get input. The process, and I'm going to explain where we are right now, but the process basically is a two-part process, and we're in part one. And part one is to define the project, what it could be, what it should be, and that's based on the 30-year outlook in terms of operations, and also a 50-year outlook in terms of the capital asset and how it should perform in terms of during that time. Overall, the project has two parts. The second part has 4 additional steps, and we're in step 1. Where we are right now is defining the project, and I'm going to tell you how we got to where we are, and then a little bit of a look ahead. And that's basically what that first couple slides of verbiage says to you. So we've done a program, a building plan, and a site plan. And really all that stemmed from a mission. And our mission was to establish a highly functional and cost-conscious building program. So that's a written explanation of what we're trying to do. And from that, we develop a site plan and a building plan. And the purposes of those plans are to accomplish the mission, which also has some underlying goals and objectives. And just on a high level, it's to create an environment for the firefighters that's safe and healthy, and visitors alike, and then provides a highly functional and effective place for them to be efficient in serving the community. That's kind of the mission that we went through. Where we are right now is, as I defined, is defining the project. If we want to kind of move into the building plans, there's a couple things I want to explain to you.
You want questions at the end of your discussion?
I'm glad you asked that. I would entertain questions anywhere along the line because I think it's more productive to talk about what we're looking
That's
at.
the style you want to use.
Any style you want, I'm just going to react to what
Where did you get
asked.
the 5 firemen? We have 3 today. That's a 66% increase. What happened?
I'll let the chief talk about that, but as I said earlier, our plan isn't to meet tomorrow's needs. It's projected 30 years out.
That's
Not tomorrow,
That's
30
basically my
years.
answer. That's not today. That's looking down the future that this station's eventually going to have to house to keep up with the times and as the community grows.
And just to add on to that, Chief, if you don't mind, generally when a fire station grows, it's two parts. One, it's the community grows, but more importantly, services that a fire station provides expands, and that's where the additional space or flexibility.
What are those services that will expand?
It's apparatus, different kinds of equipment that you don't currently have, that's always evolving to better serve the community in emergency events, fire or medical. So those things constantly renew themselves. Sizes are different, whether they're EV equipment, which is certainly something that we're on the edge of. It's currently in a couple of communities in Michigan.
Fight electric vehicle fires, or do you have electric vehicle apparatus?
It's electrical vehicle apparatus. That is, I'm just pointing out one of the things that changed in firefighting and the facilities that we provide. It's not necessarily contemplated right now, but just as a matter of what looks different down the road. We don't know everything, but we know that EV is part of it.
What's the design life of the building?
Design life functionally is 30 years, but from a physical asset, 50.
Only 30 years.
The life cycle of most buildings, one that's going to change even between now and 30 years operationally, but as the building ages, like everything else, things need to be changed. Systems usually. The brick and mortar can withstand more than 30 years, but the systems are going to change within 30 years. That's very common. It's kind of normal. We look at...
You mean systems like wiring?
HVAC equipment, plumbing equipment, those sorts of things, replaceable type things. The roof is another good example. Hardware changes, wear and tear. Those things just get rebooted along the way.
I'd like a 50 or a 100-year building.
There are components to a building, and this includes one, which is the metal roof. That's more of a 100-year outlook.
Metal roof didn't last here very long.
Well, it lasted, but
HVAC didn't
it
work.
lost its paint.
Floors are cracking.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be
That's why we
said
want to
about the
avoid
way
that.
buildings are built, not just about what they're made out of. So with good observation during the process of construction, you should experience normal life cycle wear and tear for metal roofs and other things. But I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of rambled a little bit in different directions.
We got to what? Don't we want to talk about it?
What's an estimated contingency?
It varies. It depends on the delivery method. If you're in a general contractor delivery or a construction manager delivery, it could vary a little bit. But if you were in the 10% range, you're in a reasonable place for construction. There's also estimating contingency that's built into this estimate. So, and that is because we're at a high level concept right now. There's a lot of things that go into a building that are going to be great ideas. And then I mentioned there's 4 other steps in part 2. There's going to be great ideas that happen during those steps that need to be accommodated by that estimating contingency.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if we want to go on to the plans, I'll briefly cover those. There's a couple of aspects. Joe could cover a little bit more in detail, but I think there's some highlights to building design that I can point out for you. Kind of scroll up till you see some plan graphics. For everyone that's kind of trying to speed read, that's just summarizing the process with a little bit of background.
Can you back up to page 191, please? Are you there yet?
I don't think that's reflected on Mr. Dorshevitz's.
It's not.
Okay, well, all right, I'll just read it.
What section, what's the paragraph start with?
A desire that the new station have 4 apparatus bays with bifold doors. Tell me the advantages and disadvantages of roll-up doors versus bifold. I'm curious to understand it.
That's a very critical
Durability, initial cost, maintenance, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And features, value.
Okay, I'll tackle the first one is cost. It's more expensive for a 4-fold door.
Pardon?
It's more expensive for a 4-fold or bifold, it may be referred to, door. That's first cost. Over the life cycle of the door, the 4-fold door is less expensive, but you need to use it in order to capture the value. And the value is in a couple things, wear and tear and maintenance, and that happens just by use, right? The other thing is by human error. The human error is someone's in a truck trying to get out of the station, and it's more likely, much more frequent that in an overhead door, they're getting out as quickly as they can, and they're clipping the door, damaging the truck and the door, requiring maintenance on both. The 4-fold door opens like you would expect. It collapses to the outside.
That's what they used to use 100 years ago. They were manual bifold doors.
Correct.
So we're back to 100 years ago.
No, well, we're back to what is better technology. Before, that was response time, and a lot of those were horse and carriage leaving, right? So the reason they moved away from that was cost. How can we make it cheaper? Not better, but cheaper, and that one was overhead door. So the more expensive 4-fold door opens more clearly, and response time is improved because you're out of the station quicker. They're much faster than an overhead door.
So what's the initial percentage difference in price with the overhead door as the base? Is it 10% more, 100% more? Initial cost, and then the life cycle.
It tips over 50% more initially, and we advocate for them being on the front, the prominent exit way, not front and back, for the reason of cost, and the real exiting or emergency exiting is generally out of the front. Your other question is the payback is roughly in the 10 to 15 year. You're going to experience savings in maintenance or replacement to cover the initial premium to do the 4-fold door.
15-year payback?
Roughly.
That's
So
pretty
half the life cycle of building, which is considered to be good.
Can we improve that? Is there are they made out of aluminum? Or what?
They're metal and insulated glass. There are ways to make it less expensive. There are a couple of things that you can take out benefits to make it less expensive. One benefit is blocking UV rays, sorry about that, which damage the interior contents.
You're talking about make the glass non-UV resistant?
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to do that, because then you would get too much heat gain.
Well, we don't want to do that for that reason, plus damage the interior thing. Bunker gear is ultra sensitive to UV rays as well as the apparatus. So we don't advocate that, but you're asking how can we make it cheaper? That's one way to make it cheaper. Another is to
better value for the money is what I'm trying
we're
to
all
get at.
about value.
Value analysis.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a value-driven approach is what we're trying to say. That's kind of why I say 4-fold up front, overhead in the back. You get the benefit where you need it, both in operation and longevity. from that standpoint. Did that answer your question on page 91 or 191?
Yeah, that was it. That was on page 191.
Okay. So if we go up to the plan views, and again, I'm just going to cover this very briefly. You've had a chance to look at it. Hopefully you've looked at it enough to answer some questions.
So how did you come up with $450 a square foot? There's no detail behind that rough number.
It's a couple of things. It's certainly
What page is that
experience,
on there, Bob?
certainly experience and understanding the market as it is right now.
Since I can't read that detail in some cases, I was looking for the page in here. Let's see.
In the packet, it's on page, I don't know,
193.
193.
Okay, yep, I see it. Thank you.
So to answer your question, it's one, we did a takeoff, which is very high level conceptual, and that's based on experience. And having done dozens of fire stations, and currently, I think I have 5 or 6 in construction, 3 or 4, maybe 5 in the bidding process or budgeting process. And we have in-house experts that understand this, some that maybe have dedicated, or certainly one that's what they do is fire stations.
But
So
they must have had a work paper behind this of some sort.
yes, there is some back.
What was the benchmark? You must have had something.
$500 is, if you say, what is it going to cost? I'd say $500. And then we work down from that. How frugal can you make it is not just about size. The building size is a real driver in what a building costs. The second thing is the materials that you use to construct it. The third thing in the three-legged stool of cost is how complex is the construction. So the simpler you can make construction, the better. The fact that we're doing a demolish here adds a little cost, but the fact that it's a developed site, we already have utilities, so that helps the cost. So there's a little bit of a wash there, but like if someone asked me, it's $500 a square foot, how can we make this building tight? Our building's 10,455 square feet on the ground. We have 1,100 square foot mezzanine. It's super efficient when you look at the way this building is laid out. The depth of the bay is a variable. The width of a bay is very precise. We follow NFPA and we follow UFC guidelines. So it's a functioning building immediately and into the future. We build in a little fluff for that on the outside part. So on the bay 1 and bay 3 is a little wider on the outside. But the variable is the depth. So we've used apparatus that the department currently has to gauge how deep it needs to be. So we were able to kind of tighten that up a little bit. When I say it's a super efficient building layout at 10,455 square feet, that drives down the size, one leg of the cost component.
Well, that building site is kind of a squeeze on depth. If you're facing the road.
It is, and it is a squeeze, but there is we have still yet a little buffer before we get back to the tower based on the way we have it laid out now.
You can still make a radius to make turns?
Absolutely, yeah, and have parking. And we did.
Parking you could move to the east if you had to, right?
And more than likely that will happen. In one of our initial plans, we had that. It's a way to test that, and that's a good question, is does it work? And we do geometrics in our site layout. You'll see what looks like a track or tracing of how a truck would flow through the site. So we've proven that you get in and out and just not maneuvering the site, but get into the building, out of the building, and on a response. And you can see that on the site plan.
They get in the building and on a response. What does that mean?
Get in the building, you're returning from a call, you have to enter the site, maneuver around to get into the building, and then getting out of the building is more important. How do you get out and make the radius left or right to get onto a response call? So all I'm saying is it's proven on the site plan because it shows the geometrics.
Okay, so you've done that layout.
Correct.
Can we see the maps so that?
Yeah, if you scroll
this
up,
chart's
you
not
see
explaining
a
that to
plan
me.
graphic. I know it's hard to explain drawings and words.
Well, I'm looking at numbers right now, so I haven't seen any drawings yet.
We'll want to come back to that page. I do have some more questions on the numbers. So.
If you could keep scrolling up, that's the building floor plan, at least part of it. Scroll a little further, you'll see something that looks like a site map.
It
What are
just,
those
it seems
tables?
strange in that table that you'd have exactly 18,751 square feet of concrete, but you just have one line item for the entire building. It's just, it struck me as odd, there was no detail behind that, but,
Yeah, there isn't detail presented. That would be a 3 or 4 or 5 page different kind of document.
yeah.
Yeah, but going back to your question initially, I kind of got kind of sidetracked. We do estimating in-house, but we also reach out to our construction partners, whether it's a contractor, a manufacturer, local rep, and there are certain parts of the building that we get real-time pricing on. You know, there's the rule of thumb on a lot of things, but there's some pretty fast-moving pricing on certain elements. So not only are we doing it in-house, but we're reaching out to community construction partners to get some real-time pricing too. And that was, I'll say, validated. Our in-house budget was validated by.
What is that corner room with the 4 rectangles at like a fan? What is that?
Top right?
Yeah,
That's the living area for firefighters. So that you'd have your kitchen, your dining, and your lounge area there.
oh, those are lounge chairs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the reason they look like they do, they're extended in full form, so they're properly fit into the room. If you just put the footprint, obviously, you could make an error on will it fit or not.
That's like the day room.
Day room, correct. That's the technical term. Yes. So if you kind of scroll up a little bit more, we'll get to the site plan. I think it's
Down?
scrolling the other way.
Scroll down.
Scroll down.
That's the mezzanine.
That's the mezzanine. If you could continue up another slide.
So at the top of those stairs, what is there? The
Top of
hanging
the-
hoses?
Is there
or-
no site plan on there? Your question, what's on the mezzanine? It's support storage space for the apparatus space, and it's also the fitness area for the station.
Where do you dry hoses, or that isn't done anymore?
That's right. Yeah, and then there's cabinets, so it's not like a tower like most stations would have, or,
That isn't done anymore.
it is.
We do it at Station 3.
So you have to
Station
take all
three.
the hoses to Station 3
All the
if
hoses
they're
at
wet,
Station 3. We've swapped out up there.
and that works
A lot
for
of
you?
The new hose, we can pack wet, a lot of it. It's a newer, high-tech stuff, it doesn't get moldy.
So it's not like the cotton, old rot stuff,
Okay.
rotting stuff, okay?
It doesn't have that. If it's in a fire and it's real nasty, then we do it.
Sorry, we may be sending you to look for a drawing that's not in this.
I'm sorry, what are you looking for?
It's a site plan or a site map, and it may just be in your packet and not in this particular digital file.
Okay.
No, I don't think there's a site, man.
But it is in your package. I
All right,
kind of looked
let me,
online and
this
saw
is the
what you had.
packet up here.
Okay.
Here you go.
Perfect.
Page 194.
All right,
Oh,
there,
excellent,
okay.
thank you very much. So if you look at that kind of swoopy line that starts on the street and works its way up to like a U shape and then back out onto the street, and it's kind of moving through the fire station, that's the geometrics. That's a program that you insert a apparatus type, an engine or a tanker or pump or whatever apparatus you want. The biggest thing or the worst case scenario, you run that through this program, and it shows you that it does indeed work. And again, back to one of my initial statements, we were trying to be very cost conscious. We can make any of those drives bigger and wider, but to be cost conscious, we made it fit the need versus being super generous with it. Being generous gives you a little latitude, but we were also trying to be very frugal and cost conscious.
So, when you're done talking, I have a bunch of other questions and discussions.
Fire away.
Oh, okay. The break line between the apparatus room, the wall, as you're going east,
Do you need to scroll back to
apparatus
the
room
floor?
and, I don't know, must be the kitchen.
Yep.
I can walk up and point to the wall. So the apparatus room ends, and then there's the mezzanine stairs. What is that to the right here, to the east?
There are two things. There's a report writing room, so that's where the firefighters.
Think first floor.
First floor. Yeah, so that's, I'll step over here. Can I move away from the mic? Is everyone comfortable with that?
Oh, yeah.
Or take
It
the mic
won't
with
pick you up on the recording though.
Won't pick you up.
You can have my mic.
There you go.
Is there a pointer?
Or a pointer, yeah, laser pointer.
Is there a laser pointer? I'll try it like this.
Okay,
Hopefully I
one, but I
could
keep
illustrate what I'm talking about. So your question is, what is immediately to the right of the stair? So the top box adjacent to the stair is the report writing. So that's where firefighters to go after an event to record what was done. The room right below that is the cleaning of equipment, bunker gear, all that sort of stuff for decontamination. So there's an extractor, dryer, and drying cabinet in that space.
And where's the kitchen, since I can't read the small print?
The kitchen is the top right box where we talked about day room. That's the lounge area, the dining area, and the kitchen. The kitchen's the far left element of that space. Dining's kind of in the middle, it's just a table.
Okay, those appliances and fixtures in there are not in the cost estimate? Or are they a plug number that towards the bottom of page 190?
The construction number doesn't include that, but the soft cost does. So it's in the bottom line, the 8,386,000. It's in that number, but the construction number, the 6,920, doesn't include things that if you turn the building upside down and shook it and it fell out, it's not in that cost. That would be in the soft cost.
All right, don't go away yet.
Okay.
This building was done in a hurry, without input from, well, I wasn't allowed on the committee. Hopefully I'll be allowed on this one. But we don't have a basement here, and it was a huge mistake. I'm recommending that we have a basement in the portion to the east with a 9-foot ceiling and an elevator to get there. It'll provide storage, maybe even township records, and it just will provide extra space. So we need to find out what that would cost.
Voting center.
Exactly. Voting center or something, but a basement with a ceiling that's 9 feet will give us major flexibility. Here, we made a huge mistake. If we had a basement in this building with a 9-foot ceiling, we'd be much more flexible, and at that time, the incremental cost was very low. But I was overruled and said that it was not feasible because of the water table. But there's houses right there that are 100 feet away that have basements. So I know it's feasible. Plus, I grew up here, and I know what it's like to dig a basement here. It works.
Satisfying that issue is rather easy to do. You do a geotechnical report, you find out where the water table is, recommendations come in terms of waterproofing. That's an easy thing to overcome. I think a basement idea or a flexible space, whether it's in the basement or above on grade, I think there's some options for both. The basement space is typically less than above ground.
I'm sorry,
cost.
typically what?
Less cost.
Less cost basement.
Yes, yeah.
That's why people do it in houses if they can.
Yeah, the inherent quality of being below grade has a more moderate constant temperature, so heating and cooling is a little less. You're already building foundation, you're already building a slab. There's a lot of things that go into it, but in general, it's a lot less cost to do a basement than above ground.
I want that on the shopping list, please.
Yep. Well, there's a lot, I think we've even explored some additional space on grade for some of the things you listed or noted there, so.
But we have a very tight site, so going down or up is a good thing with the lot, the way it is.
Yeah, down or up, that does have a couple other costs. Stairs over a certain size requires 2. An elevator, in some cases, first responder facilities don't necessarily require that. If we're going to use it for community aspect, not just firefighters, the elevator is recommended. So it adds some cost. If you can do that extra flex space on grade, it saves you some money, gives you square feet. There's a lot of options is all we're talking about. There's other ways to do flexible future space, whether you plan for it to be added in the future or you do it now for future flexibility, those are options.
Okay, let's talk about the heating system design, and if you're going to have a boiler to be for the hot water for the heated driveway, and can that boiler be incorporated to be the heating system for the building? Is that cost effective, or we should at least look at it from a mechanical standpoint? If we have to have a boiler for the snow melt, ice melt on the driveway, you could size the boiler potentially. I haven't done the calculation, so I don't know whether it's a good value for the money and use that boiler for domestic hot water and heating the building?
That's some great thoughts there, and I'll just kind of dissect a little bit. We typically separate the boilers if we're doing a hot water system for building heat. There's a couple reasons, but primarily you don't run them the same time, the same way, so there's some operational savings to split them. And the system that does the snow melt is a glycol system, not just water, so there is some difference in that. And we've done some case studies to show that it's cheaper to do 2 instead of 1, and arrived at that several stations ago. And typically we won't use hot water to heat a building. There are some benefits to doing it, but there are first cost implications. It's much more expensive to do a hot water heating system. Where we would do it is based on limited power availability, where we couldn't do electric reheats or something along those lines. I don't know that to be any limitation here. And we haven't really, I don't think, decided any systems. That usually happens in part 2, step 1, which is the design development.
So this cost estimate assumes a conventional forced air gas-powered heating system.
Correct.
And just a conventional gas water heater.
Correct.
Okay. And so we'd have a standalone, current assumption is standalone pavement heating system.
Pavement?
Oh,
yes,
the
pavement,
de-icing,
yeah,
the pavement de-icing system would be a standalone, independent glycol working fluid system.
Correct. And there'd be multiple system types for the apparatus space is a different environment than the living cruise area, so the systems are not one size fits all. There's 2 different systems that are used for those 2 different components.
Is your plan to heat the apparatus room floor with the glycol system also?
No.
No.
Although that is
That's something to think about.
We would generally do that, and it gets heavily discussed, if the apparatus bay isn't just for vehicle storage or place. If there's mechanics that work in that space where comfort is a little more important, then we usually introduce that, whether it's 1 bay or 2 bay or all bays. It's a discussion that happens in the design development phase.
So no real advantage to heating the floor of the bays?
Unless,
I don't know.
there's a couple
mechanics laying on the
reasons.
floor? Or do you take the trucks out? You take them to location to?
We third-party mechanics, they contract mechanics that work in our stations. They're not employees.
Well, I mean, no, but it's,
I mean, they're not here every day wrenching on the trucks.
okay, they're not, okay. All right, that's.
And typically, even there's something done in stations, and Chief can maybe speak more affirmatively to that. You don't do major mechanical things, you bring it out, but there's always something happening in a station. How frequently, who knows? And the station, the way we've got it designed, allows the head height so cabs could be open, so you could do some service. So you're not precluded from doing it, but we're not heating the floor in this current budget model to accommodate that.
So my driver is longevity and low maintenance.
Yeah, those
That
are,
needs to be a mantra. Buildings are not built with, in many cases, long-term maintenance costs high on the priority list.
well, I can say from our practice, that is definitely high on the priority list. Functionality, endurance of a building, and usability with flexibility. Like I say, our buildings are planned to be a 50-year physical life cycle. Operationally, it's more 30 years.
So
I want it to be 50.
By that, do you mean that the expectation is you would tear it down after 30 years?
No, not at all. There's some rebooting that needs to happen in building systems, and the flexibility of maybe operationally it's changed a little bit. As for instance, we have 4 dorm rooms right now. You may need 6. If you add another ambulance, that requires 2 more people. There's some things that may need to happen to the physical asset besides maintenance. Just operationally, you may need to add or change the inside.
So where would you add in this case? Up,
You'd go to the east.
go to the east, not
Yeah.
second floor.
You could, but we've kind of thought of it as though you go to the east. You just extend that corridor that's basically right through living area, you'd extend it a little further to the east.
Okay, so you'd add an addition, but how do you make the roof line look good if you make an addition? You've got a plan now for the roof line so that it's high enough that you can make an addition without
We have thought
messing up
about,
the roof line. It'll look ugly, plus it'll be a roofing
That's what
maintenance.
Joe designed this plan so we could go to the south with
Yeah.
extra bedrooms if we needed.
I thought you said the
Extra
east.
amount.
You can go to the east.
to the right, I'm sorry, it is east, right? So, yeah, so you do a cross gable on top of that sloping eave is what you would do. You wouldn't extend the slope, you'd add a cross gable to it.
Well, in the design, the gables aren't uniform anyway, right? I mean, when you look at, this is lower than this.
They're all 212, correct? Yeah, we're 212 with a metal roof. 212 means the slope, you slope down 1 foot and 2 feet run.
Rise over the run, so, so if you came out to the east, you would expand, the roof line would be continuous and uninterrupted then.
No, we would do a cross gable. We wouldn't extend the
You
slope.
wouldn't it look better if
It
you?
also depends which plan you're looking at, 'cause there's two
Okay.
different roof lines.
Okay, hold on, I'm looking at one where the gables go, north to south. I mean, one is north.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's keep going, there's another one
Okay,
that's a
so-
continuous roof.
While you're finding that, I want to bring up
Hold
a
on.
point to add on to something I said earlier. I talked about response time
Page
in
2.
regard to the 4-fold door. As I'm looking at the corridor, I wanted to point this out. The control of response time within the department is only in the building and leaving the site. They don't have control of what happens when they get on the road. What we've done in this plan, from an efficiency and response time thought, is create an absolute simple, from a dorm room right out through the vestibule into the apparatus bay, which is important. And to have a bathroom on that run route is also important. The other thing is from the day room, where they spend most of their time when they're not sleeping or in the apparatus bay, is also got that same direct route. So what we've designed into this is the ultimate response time routes from where the firefighters will be into the apparatus bay. It's a subtle thing that could easily get missed, but it's a very critical planning thing that we use in our strategy. So what we can do from a planning operational standpoint for response time has been incorporated into the building. What happens out on the road getting to a site, we don't have control over. But what we can control, we've incorporated good, smart design.
Well, so the most logical addition in that vein of having the flow to the apparatus room would be to add to the east. Because those hallways would go, you just extend them to the east.
Correct, absolutely right.
So that's why I want you to design in the flex so that when we add, or if we ever add, the building will not look like it has an addition. It will be disguised. So the roof line will be uninterrupted. I'd rather not have a gable tie-in versus keeping the same gabled roof, just moving it east, so it'll be extended.
I understand, that's a good thought.
I'm trying to make it so that when people make additions on houses especially, oftentimes they're ugly because the building was not designed to accommodate the addition, and so they had to do a workaround.
I
But
think
you have a chance here with a clean sheet of paper to be able to put the flex in the design so that when and if you ever decide to do that, or somebody does, it's a no-brainer, and it will look good.
Agreed. And I think some of
Could
that
I
pre-planning has
interject for a
been done.
minute? The plan that you're looking at now and the elevations that you are looking at now are actually slimmed down from an earlier version where we had exactly what you're talking about. We'd already taken into consideration the fact that, well, we want to expand actually to the east for, at that time, it was a community room, a large meeting room, and it would have also added an additional suite in this fire station. We had configured and reconfigured the roof line in any one of these options that we've already presented to you so that it would work in that direction. The same thing could be done whether it's done now, next week, or 10 years from now. If you get a competent architect that would be doing that for you, he would understand that already. But because of where the costs were going at that time, we slimmed it down to this point, but always with that thought in mind, that if you add on, it can be done and it'll work right.
So if you go to page 197, if you look at that view, option one, I think it's called option one. If you look from the, you can't really see it here. Well, okay, you could do that. That's where you could just extend the roof line to the east, and you would never know that you had an addition.
No, that's true. And you could also come forward and have it mimic what's going on over the apparatus bay. and
Forward,
that
you could
still
do it and
works.
still have enough height with the gable.
You would frame actually into it.
Yeah, that's what I don't like, is where you'd have the roof framed into it, and that's where you end up with sometimes less roof durability because of water and ice flow. And it looks a little weird. Versus if you went totally to the east, you would never know an addition was made because you could maintain the gable.
It also depends on which roof we pick too.
Pardon?
I guarantee
If
you,
choose
in
the
30
gable that
years, you
goes
won't
this
have the
way.
same material.
Yeah.
So it'll be
Because
obvious.
there's two different roof lines.
Well, in 30 years, you probably need a new, well, no, you wouldn't. It's metal roof. You could,
No, I'm just talking about the exterior stuff. I mean, you're not gonna find the same material.
well, that's again, if you design with stuff that has flex that you can paint or whatever, if you plan and not have something that locks you into a particular color that is not easily matched or a texture, you can plan for flex and for free. It doesn't cost you money to plan for flex if you pick materials that aren't overly unique and could be easily reproduced in 30 years or still available.
I think what Jerry was trying to say was the fact that the materials for building might be very, very much different by the time we get to that point, if we ever get to that point.
Different,
In terms of construction and.
different colors?
No, not colors, just.
different
the
material.
Material itself. You know, I mean, look, we all put decks that were wooden at one time, now there's Trex, you know?
But you still could put wood if you wanted, still available.
It's still available, but.
So if you had a wood deck you wanted to match, you could still do wood. That's my point. You could, if you pick something that, well, I know it's difficult to explain, but if you have the background, you can understand that you can design is everything. It's the most important thing for quality, longevity of a building and appearance.
I agree.
It's absolutely important. That's where everything goes. It's designed in.
One other thing I wanted to point out, we're not on the plans any longer, but I pointed out where the dorm rooms were with the corridor. In this plan, we incorporated individual dorms which promotes some privacy, individual restrooms, which helps with gender neutrality, and the lockers, the personal lockers are engaged in that space. So we don't have a locker room per se, which has been very typical for decades. And through study, we've determined that square footage is a lot more efficient in accommodating all three of those things together, not a locker room over here and a restroom next to it and then dorm rooms over here. They're all concentrated together, which is, one, efficient, but it adds to a little bit of a quality of life for the firefighters, which has been found to promote consistency with your current firefighters and also helps as a tool for recruiting and bringing new firefighters.
So every room will have a private bath, private locker.
Private locker within that little cluster of space. So there's an ante room before you walk in the dorm. If you look at the plan, you'll see the 3 boxes.
It's a Jack and Jill.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a Jack and Jill.
Yeah.
Not 100% private.
It's 100% private in that the doors are interlocked. You can't walk into
The Jack side or Jill side?
Correct.
Okay, so there's a door.
There's doors on both sides, but they're interlocked. So if I'm in there, you can't open that door because I'm already in there, and vice versa. And it's done a number of ways, lighting techniques, lock techniques, and interlocks. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I've lived on the same street in Lake Point for 40 years as of this August. I have been inside the current building. Drew Loudon, firefighter, gave me a tour. It took about 3 minutes. Significant changes. Lake Point is now densely populated. the houses, the trees are out there. I'm talking about potential fires. Independence Village has a waiting list. The development that's going in with condos on Plymouth Road by the courthouse, we're going to have another 400 occupants there. We've all been horrified with the picture of Clinton Township. Yeah, I drive Haggerty almost every day. We have Bosch, we have Wabasto, we have Rivian, and gentlemen, I'm coming out of Wyandotte, where there was a fire every month at the Big Ash Soda Factory, BASF. I'm concerned. So I want to see that you're going to be meeting the needs of the people, and aging population also, the slip and fall. So I just wanted to mention those factors here as to whether or not we should go forward with an improved fire station that will provide more and better services. So thank you. We're not voting on anything tonight, but please understand the big picture of where you are around. And you've already had a lot of runs for small fires at Wabasto. It's my understanding. So thank you, and let's go onward and forward.
Do we want to talk about financing and design? Design. The next step is a design. You're going to make construction drawings next, or you're not there yet?
The next step from here, if proceeding, we would do a design development phase where we work intensely with the firefighters and chief administration as they are joined in.
And me? I'd like to be on that.
Whomever's on
Is
the
that okay,
committee.
Kurt? Can I be on the committee?
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet? Yeah, I don't want to be on this one. I asked in the beginning.
In that phase, we refine the design and make product selections, system selections. And once all that's done, then we move into technical drawings and construction documents for building and bidding. And then the fourth phase is the procurement, where we seek competitive bids. The fifth phase is actually we implement construction. We do administration of construction. So there's a lot more to come.
So if we have if we have good drawings and we timing this building, if we'd have waited an extra 2 years in this case, construction costs would have gone down by 25 to 30%. But because right now people are so aggressive on quoting high prices for construction.
Yes.
If we're ready, we can get the job quoted and built maybe at a more opportune hole that comes in. Holes seem to, sometimes it's cyclical. So if we can pick that, we would get a better job at probably a lower price and maybe even quicker. Because now construction times have expanded because of labor shortages. So the timeline. So I think that we have a lot of flexibility if we get a good design that is value engineered and has construction company input, so that we design for construction also, so that we don't have designs that are difficult or expensive or exclude certain contractors from bidding because they don't want to do that kind of work. We have something that is more standard, more common. It's all part of getting a higher quality job at a lower cost in a shorter period of time.
Two critical things I think you just said, and many more, but two I'll point out is you said getting construction input, which we do a lot of because we look to do it better, not just design it, but get it built. The other thing is cyclical. You're right, it ebbs and flows, but there's very predictable times that are better to bid than not. So if we're bidding in the November, December, January timeframe, you're going to get a much better price. People are looking for the job, they're going to start in April or May. So if we get into the queue at the right time, you're going to get a better competitive pricing. If you're bidding in April or May next year, you're going to pay the price.
You understand it, I'm glad. So
I'm totally,
hopefully,
we strategize with our construction partners, and we beat the drum. We go to the marketplace and say, now we have this job. It's going to be online in November. We want to make sure you're thinking about it and not taking on unnecessary work just to keep your books full. Here's a really good job. Be ready for this one. And we'll do that, 5 or 6 people. Our bid pools look way different than a lot of other bidders. You get 1, 2 bids in some cases. We get 5, 6, 7. because we beat the drum.
This is all stick-built lumber, or are you using steel?
It's going to be two things. It'll be masonry bearing. The apparatus bay will be masonry bearing. So we don't do redundant systems.
Cement block?
Concrete block, yes. Yeah.
Okay, concrete block.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but yes, concrete block. Single white, reinforced concrete block, meets the energy code, is the smart way to do the apparatus bay. On the living cruise quarter side, we'll do a frame system. It'll be light gauge. It won't be steel, it'll be light gauge because it's more economical.
Light gauge?
Light gauge, it's like a 2x4, but it's metal.
Oh, so you're using stamped steel 2x4?
Correct. Yeah.
All right, so,
Yeah.
but you're not using girders for beams?
We will in the apparatus bay.
Steel girders?
Steel girders in the
Right.
apparatus bay. And in the living side, there'll be light gauge trusses more than likely.
Those engineered trusses?
Engineered
that are
trusses.
glued with
They're-
OSB
They're
or
screwed
whatever?
and welded.
Yeah, okay.
They show up on site ready to install.
Can we minimize the amount of brick on the building?
You can if it's a budget.
More modern building looks with it, no brick typically, or
Yeah.
less brick.
So we have a combination. Some of the renderings you're looking at, you see some kind of grid-like patterns. That's a modern material. It's a cementitious or cementitious.
In sheets?
It's in sheets or in siding material.
That's
But
less labor than putting individual bricks in.
Yeah, and you can make it modular as well, which is
Right.
also better quality control. It shows up ready to install. You're not doing it in the field. There's a lot of things that we look at. So we look at a cost.
Gary, that way, if you use that kind of siding, if you do make an addition and you want to make it match perfectly, you would take off the old siding and re-side it. You can do that.
Yes.
Versus if it's masonry, where you'd have to chip out all the brick and spend a lot of money to try, and you'd never get brick that would match. So that's another reason why I don't think we should use a lot of brick. Labor costs and long-term design flexibility.
Okay, do you have anything else for us tonight?
I could go on and on, but I think I've covered the bases.
No, I've heard quite a bit.
right,
Do we have any questions from, do we have any other questions from any of the other trustees? Questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you. Chief Connolly, do you have any other updates for us on this project?
Nope.
Okay. All righty. Well,
Let's hear the
gentlemen, thank you
financing,
very
guys.
much. We will be, do you want to talk about the financing? We do have Mr. Colas here tonight. If you want to go back to that grid, the financial cost estimates. So Tom, why don't you just give us an idea? It's been a while since we last went out for bonds. Just kind of give us an idea of what the market looks like right now, and what's your expectation professionally of where we would land for credit rating purposes if we were to go out for bonds. So those are just a couple questions, and then what do you believe is the likelihood of a reduction, the Fed lowering interest rates sometime over the summer? I suspect that that's probably going to happen for political purposes, but that's
Let's
my
buy a
opinion.
futures contract on it.
But that's my opinion, please, I'm talking. And so, Tom, just kind of walk us through what that would, what our bond expectations would look like.
So, good evening. Again, I'm a bond lawyer. I'm not your financial advisor. So when it comes to financial advice, predicting the markets, that's not really in my bailiwick, although I did talk to your financial advisor earlier today. So the expectation in a current market, depending upon the length of the transaction, right, the term of the bond issue, the shorter your bond issue, typically the lower interest rate than if the bond was extended for a longer period of time.
Even now?
Even now, because the idea is the longer your bond issue is outstanding, the higher the risk that the investor takes that something happens.
Been inverted for a year and a half.
The short end of the very short end is, but you still have rates that would be increasing over time as you get to the latter part of the yield curve. So interest rates now from between 10 and 20-year transaction would be somewhere in the 3.25% to 4%, according to the township's financial advisor, Benzinski and Company. Predicting interest rates is really challenging. If you look at what people are talking about, if the Fed reduces rates, again, that would be a reduction in the short-term rates. That could have an impact on the beginning part of the bond issue. But again, in the long term, if we're talking a 15, 20-year bond issue, That may not have as much impact on the back end of that transaction as it would on the front end. But nevertheless, any reduction in the Fed rate could have a positive impact, of course, on the rate that the.
What about our credit rating right now? You told me we're at an A
You're at a double A plus.
Double A
Right,
plus.
so the township's a double A plus, currently rated as a double A plus by Standard & Poor's rating agency. So again, a rating is an independent rating by a company that goes in and does a financial analysis, not just on the township. The rating is, there's multiple components that go into a rating. One, of course, is the fiscal stability of the township, but also the geographic area in which the township sits. So the county that the township, so Wayne County has an impact on the township's rating. So geographically, it's more about not just the township itself, but there's other factors that these rating agencies take into account.
But we haven't gone out for bonds though in several years, so.
It's been quite a number of years since the township has bonded. So for every bond issue that you go out to the market that is over $1 million, you would get a review of the rating.
And we're frankly carrying very little debt right now, and that debt will be reduced further in the next 2 years, so.
Yeah, the township has just over about $2.3 million worth of debt, which is quite low.
Quite low.
Bob, that's
Now,
predominantly
if you
for
look
this
at,
building?
sorry, I'm
Bonds,
asking the
yes.
questions, please. So if you look at our bond rating vis-à-vis Northville Township, we're kind of comparable in many ways. And I know Northville is going out, they seem to be going out for bonds every year. I think they've gone out for $32 or $35 million in bonds for their new municipal complex. But that includes a fire station, a DPW yard, and police. So, and they're at a AAA credit rating. Now, I don't want to hold you to that, but I mean, I would think that given our low debt that we have, the fact that, I mean, we have much lower taxes than Northville Township has. We have, I think, certainly a leaner operation than Northville has. I mean, my prediction is that we would almost certainly hit the AAA status. What does that do to our interest rates? I mean, I can't think that hurts us, right?
No, not at all. Of course, again, the higher the interest rate, the higher the rating, that means to an investor, the less risk that they take, so they're willing to take a lower yield. So that would be a direct decrease, really, in the interest rate that you would expect to obtain. Because again, it really comes down to what's the rating of the township, what's the duration of the transaction, what type of security is pledged. That's what the rating agencies take into account when they factor into, what rating they're going to assign to the bond issue.
Yeah.
And so that analysis would be done as part of the transaction. There would be a meeting with the rating agency.
So let me ask you, this is a homeowner's type question. If I were to take out a home loan or a mortgage, and if I paid upfront a certain amount, what would that impact have on my interest rate or the length of the bond? Say, for example, if this is a $8.5 million project, if the township puts $1 million down, does that create any discernible benefit for us, or is there a cost?
Probably not.
Time value type.
All it's going to do is reduce the annual debt service that's required, because you would issue less debt, right? So whether the township's issuing $6 million or $8 million wouldn't really have an impact on the interest rate that you would receive. It's more the duration of the transaction that you want to pay it over.
And
So
cash
whether that's-
flow, because your payment would be less.
Correct. So
Your
yes,
cash
when
flow would
I
be-
mean debt service, I mean it's a reduction of the annual required
No, I
payment
understand.
to pay principal and interest on the bonds. The shorter the transaction, the lower the higher the rating, the lower the interest rate, which then translates to a lower debt service requirement on an annual basis.
So Tom, if we go forward on this, let's just hypothetically say that we decide to go forward in, 3 months. I'm just throwing that out there. What steps have to be taken legally, procedurally, with respect to our bonding obligations?
So the process
Just walk
is-
us through that
yep.
process.
So the process is twofold from the township board's perspective. It's initiated by consideration of a resolution that authorizes publication of a notice of intent to issue bonds in the paper. So again, this is the township's done this for its previous capital improvement bonds. The notice goes in the paper. It says, the township intends to issue bonds in a principal amount not to exceed X amount of dollars. Again, that's the ceiling. It's not an actual requirement to issue what's actually in that notice, but not to exceed. It describes the purpose for which the proceeds will be used. Again, it'll be the construction of the fire station. The source of security for the bonds, which would be the general fund. It's a general obligation of the township. And you can utilize any legally available sources to make that debt service payment. But to the bondholder, I'm getting basically a pledge of your general fund. And then with it comes the right of referendum. So it allows a petition to be filed within 45 days of publication of that notice, signed by not less than 10% of the registered electors, that requests it to be put to a full vote. If there's no petition filed within that 45-day period, once the project is bid and we have a good cost, and if we would come back to the township board for actually an authorization to issue the bonds. So that would provide, now we have a good solid cost. We hope it's within the ceiling that was put in that notice, and then we refine the dollar amount that's needed to go out to pay basically pay for the cost of the construction and any issuance costs associated with the bond issue, because you can finance those also. The township could decide, well, we're just going to finance the cost of the project versus the issuance cost. That's totally within the township's realm if they want to figure out if they want to contribute some funds to the project. That bond resolution provides, again, the actual details of the bonds. When are we paying principal and interest? What does the amortization schedule look like? Is it a 10-year, a 15-year, a 20-year? How are you selling the bonds? Are we selling the bonds through publication of a notice, what we call a quote-unquote competitive sale, where you publish a notice in the bond buyer and you take bids from anybody across the country? You're just looking for the lowest true interest cost associated with the bond issue. If we do that, if we sell competitively, by state law, you're required to take the lowest true interest cost. So even if someone else, the local bank, is next in line, if you're going to accept any bids, you have to accept the lowest true interest cost under state law under that purpose. There's another alternative method for negotiating where you actually pick an investment banking firm beforehand, and then you enter the market and negotiate a price with them pursuant to a bond purchase agreement.
And in
Is that
that second
private placement?
example,
Oh, I'm sorry.
in that second example, then you would not competitively bid the bond if you were working with an investment bank?
So what you could do is basically an RFP to get investment bankers to actually respond to that, and then select one and then go out into the market. That provides a little bit more flexibility of timing as to when to enter the market. My expectation is that your financial advisor, a project like this, would recommend a competitively sold transaction where you publish a notice in the bond buyer and you see what bids you get on that particular day.
What is the reason for that? Because of the size of it being so small?
Actually, it's a pretty sizable issue, to be honest. For a competitive sale, this is still a good size issue of let's just say if it's 8 million, somewhere in that ballpark, that's a sizable issue. The reason I'd say that it's a simple transaction in the sense of it's not very complex. It's a general obligation bond issue, fixed rate. So when we do negotiated transactions, they tend to be much larger, or there might be a story to be told that there needs to be some type of communication with the end investor. Whereas here, the offering document would really, and the notice of sale would really offer all the information that the investor needs, and it wouldn't be a complicated system in the sense of the township, there would be explained, the rating would be involved, we're constructing a new facility. So there really isn't, it's not a complex story to sell, so a competitive sale tends to be what the financial advisors have been leaning towards more recently. And then, so once we authorize it, we would then get the offering documents ready, meet with the rating agency, and then before we sell the bonds, we'd get the rating on the bonds, go out and sell on that date, and then within 3 weeks of the sale date, you'd have proceeds and then can start constructing. So you're probably talking 4 or 5 months from start to finish on the bond side. And we would layer that in with, kind of the other pieces of when do we get actual bids in hand before we go out to the market.
Okay, any other questions for Tom at this time? Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to item F3. This is the collective bargaining agreement with the Command Officers Association of Michigan, representing our police sergeants. The cover memo is in front of you, and this contract pretty much mirrors the patrol officers contract, which you approved last month. Really, the only difference, which has been in this contract for decades, is that the sergeants receive a 16%
wage over and above the police officers. That's 16%, 10% for probationary sergeants and 16% for the non-probationary sergeants. There are no other ties, connections, or Me Toos other than the ones that are in front of you, but this, again, other than the wage differential, this mirrors the patrol officer's contract.
So why on page 208 do we talk about the 8-hour shift, which we haven't had in over 20 years? Should we take that out?
Sergeants will be paid at a rate of 8 hours per day.
That's 209, page 209.
208 is what I'm looking at.
Oh,
Okay.
It's also on 209.
What section?
Section 14, or is that 4? The work period for, it says 8-hour shifts will be utilized by the township, then parentheses, it is understood that the township and union have agreed to utilize 12 hours. That's been over 20 years ago.
And it's still on a trial basis.
It is, for 20 years? Can
Okay.
you tell us something
We're
about
still waiting
that?
to see if it works out.
So far, it's working out.
In fact, I think it was when Carl Berry was here. It converted.
8-hour shifts are utilized by,
Mostly.
not, I wouldn't say most, but some departments. 12 seems to be the trend that most are going to. It helps with retention as well as recruiting. Officers get every other weekend is a 3-day weekend. They have their long week and their short week. So, and typically with 8-hour shifts, officers get on. When I got on the shift, I never saw a weekend or a holiday for 5 or 6 years, or maybe 8 years. So it's a significant recruiting
So
tool.
why are we keeping the 8-hour language in here? Just-
Maximum flexibility for management.
Okay.
And you said some people utilize the 8
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah, it's my
No,
previous.
not some
agency
people on our force. Nobody on our force uses 8 hours.
But it does offer some flexibility if
You understand that
something
no policemen work 12 hours. So some departments use 8 hours.
Correct.
Right, but we don't.
We don't currently.
Yeah.
No, we don't currently.
So I was just trying to understand why it's
Okay.
still in there.
Any other questions? Can you entertain a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion's made by trustee Stewart. Is there a second?
Second.
You gotta read the
Oh, I
motion.
gotta read the motion. Read the motion.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Command Officers Association of Michigan Sergeants for a term beginning January 1, 2024, ending December 31, 2027, and authorize the supervisor and clerk to sign same.
second.
Okay, motion's been made by trustee Stewart, seconded by clerk Forva. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heising?
Yes.
Supervisor Stewart?
Oh,
Treasurer Stewart?
well,
Yes.
Trustee.
I'm tired. Trustee Stewart?
Yes.
The
Treasurer
last name,
Borchett?
make it easy.
Yes.
Trustee Buckler?
Yes.
Trustee Monahan?
Yes.
Trustee Kermit?
Yes.
Clerk Corley, yes. Motion carried.
okay, very good. Next is the employment agreements for non-union police personnel. So Assistant Chief Kudra and Lieutenant Ryan Krebs are not represented by any collective bargaining unit or union. And so it has been our tradition for the last probably 5 or 6 years to have separate employment contracts with these gentlemen. Their contracts are tied to the command officer's contract in many respects, except for wages and some other, really minor differences between the two. But they closely mirror the command officer's contract. These contracts really, other than the wage, the starting salary, has not been, I don't think we had any alterations from the contract that that the board approved 5 years ago. So, same agreement, and it's got to scroll down, buddy.
So are you guys satisfied with this? This is what you want? All right.
Okay,
Mr. Could I
Yes, sir.
also add that
Yes.
in 35 years in law enforcement, I can tell you that these two gentlemen for upper command are two of the top that I've worked with that are very loyal. This past Friday night, we had a missing individual. Both these, the assistant chief and lieutenant, the fire chief, myself, we all responded to work on that. We were able to safely find that individual in the pouring rain. Is just one example of many. Lieutenant Krebs' phone rings almost on a nightly basis. So just two of the most loyal and professional upper command officers that I've worked with, so.
Found the person indoors or outdoors?
We found them eventually indoors, yes, sir. Where a majority of us were outdoors looking for her.
So after they were soaked.
Yes.
And I would add too that we, as I always say, we're a very lean operation here. And if you look at other communities, even comparable communities, they will have a deputy chief, sometimes more than one. They'll have captains, lieutenants, a large group of lieutenants, sergeants. So for us to have the leadership team that we have here is not only experienced and dedicated, but also very efficient. And we do appreciate all the work that they do. So,
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move to approve Resolution 2024-03-12-12, approving the employment agreement for Assistant Police Chief Dan Kudra and Lieutenant Ryan Krebs as submitted and authorized the Supervisor Clerk to sign.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Clerk Vorba, seconded by Trustee Kermy. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Clerk Borba, yes. Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Trustee Monahan.
Yes.
Trustee Buckley.
Yes.
Treasurer Dorchevitz.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisler.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Very good. Next up is our goal prioritization chart and summary sheet for 2024. I don't know if we really want to dwell on this. It kind of speaks for itself.
Well, goals are important. I have some questions if you want to answer them.
Sure.
2.02, continue sidewalk gap program. I think we should slow it down this year because of the lousy quality and timing and cost we're getting.
I think you're confusing the sidewalk gap program with the sidewalk replacement program.
Both.
And
I'm
we
talking
are,
about both.
well, we are moving forward on the sidewalk gap program on Powell Road this year. But as far as the sidewalk replacement program, we have to do a look back and fix the areas of error from 2023. Otherwise, we're pretty much going to pause the sidewalk replacement program for this year.
I think we should pause gap because of they're giving us such bad service.
No, the residents of Plymouth Township admire the program. It's probably one of our more successful projects. People want to walk, bike, and jog safely.
I know that.
From all over the township, and it's a very successful project, so. Any other questions?
Yes.
We have,
Go ahead.
we had a presentation tonight on a project that is ranked 32nd. What are we doing with these goals to align with the work that we're doing?
Well, we're learning more about the potential for a new fire station too in Lake Point.
Where,
I would say that when the goals were placed on the table, we didn't have the level of information that we have today. So what that tells me is that we need more information and more data from the consultants and from the fire chief.
Bob, help me, where is the fire station one on the list here? It's
Right here.
it's 1 point, what is its number, what is the item?
5.0, 1.01.
Okay, yep, I see it. 23 total points. Okay. So it's in the bottom half of the current ranking, right?
Right.
All right, when you're done, I have some more questions.
I'm done.
Okay. Pay off 100% of pension, which I know that was always been the projection by 2028, and 75% of OPEB. Bob, what percent are we at right now? Like somewhere around 30?
I just put that in my presentation today.
Upper 20s, I want to say.
No, we're at, gosh darn it, I can't remember.
Well, okay, so don't worry about, so probably need to break those into two pieces. 75% of OPEB, I think, is aggressive for 1 year.
I think we're
Well,
at
not 1
six,
year,
I
but
think we're at
2028.
62 of OPEB.
Okay, all right, so it's not 20%, it's closer to.
I thought that was high, but.
Yeah, I don't know. I gotta, hang
All right,
on.
well, we'll revisit that in the future. I just think it's maybe a little aggressive, but depending on how much debt we take on and other spending.
Yeah, because I thought it was supposed to be like in 35 or something.
Yeah, it was farther out there, so this is pulling it ahead.
Yeah.
To the same year as the defined benefit pension,
Yes.
which was the projection years ago.
Right.
2027, 2028. So that's on track, which is nice that we will have our defined benefit pension obligations well in hand by that time. And they won't be accruing to be getting larger. Number 2.14, build, acquire a voting center. I hope we do some thought on that one to slow it a little bit, especially if we build this station. Maybe we can have some flexibility in the station.
What do you mean flexibility in the station?
In other words, when we build the station, maybe there might be some room to do it use it as a voting center,
Probably not, you have no parking.
especially if we have a basement or something.
Yeah, you have no parking.
Even if we went to the east?
You have no
parking.
You have no parking. You have no parking.
Well, let's look at the drawing.
I've looked at the drawing, you have no parking.
No, I'm talking about to the east. The parking's, you can put parking all the way up to the sidewalk for Schoolcraft Road, where we planted those beautiful trees.
And when you start having 9 days of early voting several times a year, and you're having fire runs and everything else, I mean, that's a disaster.
And it's not centrally located at all.
Yeah.
Not centrally located? I think there's
The
900 houses.
law requests a centrally located location. So this would be worse than having it at
The 9
Friendship.
days of voting are not going away, folks.
I'm not saying they're going away, I'm trying to
I'm just
figure out
telling
a
you, it's
creative
not
way to
going-
get there.
Well, we own property at the Township Park. We could build a multi-purpose building there that can be used for all types of things and be available for voting, and there's plenty of parking there. So there's other options that we can look at, and I'm willing to do that, but in 2 years, it's gonna be a short time. There's gonna be another election, and you're gonna need either keep renting places to where that may not be available, and you build a multi-purpose facility that would benefit the public in a number of ways, and then have room for storage.
So we'll do a rent versus buy analysis.
Yes,
Okay,
that's fine.
Good. Number 4.12, create a new Citizens Advisory Committee for 2025. Tell me what that is. The
Well,
last time it happened, we ended up with a tax increase.
Well, that's a very unfair statement. The Citizens Advisory Council was first created in 2017 when the new crew came on board here. It was very successful. We had a tremendous feedback from the residents. Many of the goals and objectives of the commission were implemented. Most of those were of moderate to low cost, really, for the township long-term. As far as the millage, Chuck, as you know, that was the millage that was recommended by Treasurer Clinton to assist with the pension and OPEB obligations of the township, which had been neglected for decades, as well as purchasing badly needed fire and police equipment. I supported that millage, and anything that we can do to honor our obligations to our first responders and their families and retirees is a good thing, and also to enhance our first responder capabilities. So, you can spin it.
That's what we're doing, we're going down the road, so I'm trying to
however
just
you want.
understand
Yeah.
what it is. So you plan to form some committees like 2017?
Yeah, similar to what we did in 2017.
All right, but don't get defensive, you gotta explain stuff.
Don't
or you-
editorialize,
or
that's
you
not the
write
purpose.
well,
That was not the purpose of the
that was
Citizens
his-
Advisory Council.
That was history, that's what we did
Well,
last time.
No, but you're
It's history.
characterizing it as it was some kind of a organized effort to raise taxes, which it was not, so. Okay,
But I don't want to get in the middle of this, but I don't know why we're doing goals if we're not following them.
What do you mean?
It's toward, that particular initiative is,
Way down.
What are you talking about?
it's the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Okay, that's, yeah,
Why are we doing these if we're not following
they're
them?
goals. I mean, and it's next year. I mean, I don't know, I think we should have public input. We spent most of the summer with people in this room saying that they weren't getting heard, so this is a way for people to be heard.
Well,
get
some of
that,
them
but-
are more actionable than others, you know.
Some of these goals are easy to
They're
do,
goals.
even though they may have a low rating, might be easier to do, so.
That's a good way to put it.
Well, we're going to work on one of them, dogs in the park today, right? Is that one of the goals on there?
Discuss it, yeah. All right, so I'm going to entertain a motion to receive and file this item.
I move the Township Board receive and file goals,
Second.
prioritization chart, and summary sheet for 2024.
Okay, motion is made by trustee Stewart. Is there a second by
Second.
Mr. Vorba? Please take the, yeah.
You have
Is
to
that-
do
No, we don't have to
a
take it.
resolution on this?
No, we're just receive and file.
Just receive and file. Supervisor Heising,
We don't have to take a roll call on receive
all in
and file.
favor?
All in favor of receive and
Aye.
file?
Aye.
All righty then, so now we're bringing up the dogs in the park, animals in the park. Kevin has worked on some draft ordinances, and he's prepared a summary sheet, which I've not had a chance to look at yet. It's
Which is
kind of a late
replacing the
entry.
one in our,
So you should have in front of you on the desk a draft ordinance.
This
And then
isn't-
a summary sheet of what was prepared by Kevin.
Right. What we got was still accurate. What's in the packet is still good stuff. Background.
What's on their desk now is the most
that's the
recent.
most recent.
Kevin, I think you have the floor.
Okay, the board has directed me to look at proposed changes to the animals ordinance, the Parks and Recreation ordinance, and the park rules. With respect to the animal ordinance, that is Chapter 90 of the Plymouth Township Code of Ordinances. First of all, there was a discrepancy on what constitutes a kennel. The current Section 90.02 defines kennel as a place where more than 3 dogs are kept. Section 90.10 provides for purposes of this subchapter, any person who keeps more than 4 dogs, which are 3 months old or over on any one property in the township, shall be deemed to be operating a kennel. So there is a discontinuity between Section 90.02 and 90.10. Ultimately, the decision of whether a kennel will constitute more than 3 dogs or more than 4 dogs is a board consideration. So I'd like a directive from the board on that specific issue for the final ordinance.
I support 4 dogs, like 3 dogs is too low.
More than 4.
It's more than 4 or more than 3?
More than 3 or more than 4?
More than 4. So that means you're allowed 4 dogs.
Yes. That is a
kennel,
discretionary consideration
For
for the
a
board,
private
however.
residence, to not be considered a kennel, you could have up to 4 dogs.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Okay, well, I'd like to get a directive from the board on that issue. To solve that discontinuity between 90.02 and 90.10. Second, I propose 2 changes to the current Section 90.15, well, maybe 3. First of all, the current title to 90.15 is offenses by dogs. Dogs cannot commit offenses, so I propose that the title be changed to offenses by persons who own or have charge, control, and/or custody of a dog.
Hey, Kevin? You
Yes.
gotta misspelled control.
I saw that.
Okay.
I've corrected it on my version
Okay.
right now. So that would be the first proposed change. Second, the clause, "It shall be unlawful within the township," is proposed to be changed to, "It shall be unlawful within the township for any person who owns or has charge, control, and/or custody of a dog." So the person would be charged rather than the dog. Okay, I was expecting more chuckles than that.
So you're saying that people have been able to get out of a charge based on that wording?
That defense has come up at court, and I'd like to remedy that, so it doesn't arise again.
He said that so professionally, you know.
Did.
This will simply clean up the language of the ordinance to make the offense apply to the owner of the dog or the person who has charge of the
First
dog.
bite is free, right?
Second, Section 15C currently provides it shall be unlawful within the township to permit a dog to run at large as defined in this subchapter. I propose that that be changed because this issue has also come up in court. The term permit implies an intent to allow the dog to run at large. In other words, to prove the case, you'd have to show the intent that the owner or the person in charge of the dog had the intent to let the dog loose. That is not always the case. In fact, generally, that is rarely the case. Usually it's the case that the dog gets out because it slips under a hole in the fence or runs out a door when somebody's carrying something in the house. So I propose that the change be, it shall be unlawful within the township for any person who owns or has charge, control, or custody of a dog to knowingly or unknowingly permit a dog to run at large as defined in this subchapter. This would remove any implied intent requirement regarding prosecution of the person who owns or has charge of a dog.
Hey, Kevin?
Yes.
I still think there's an issue here, because if you unknowingly allow it, you can't unknowingly allow a dog, you can't unknowingly permit a dog, because you don't know it.
Well, if you can think of a better word, I'm all ears.
Don't know, that word
So you're
permit.
just, like, if you allow him to escape or something, the dog to escape?
Well, what if he dug a hole under the fence? That's unknowing.
Yeah, but you're not permitting that to happen, because you don't know about it.
Can you think of a better word than permit?
I'd have to think about it.
So would I.
But you see what I'm saying?
I'm all ears.
That's the way to get out of it.
Facilitation.
I'm all ears, if anybody's got a better word. The third one is that there's currently no ordinance in place that requires the owner or person in charge of a dog that defecates on private or public property to hold them accountable if they don't pick it up. So I propose adding the new section 90.24, which would provide any person running or walking or having charge, control, and/or custody of any dog shall immediately remove and dispose of in a sanitary manner any excrement deposited by such dog on the private property of another or on any public park, walk, street, grassy area, recreational area, and/or other municipally owned or controlled property. So that would cover private property of others and public property. I should note that the ordinance already contains a provision regarding keeping your own property free of dog excrement. That would be section 90.16. That states that all persons owning, keeping, or harboring any dog shall maintain the premises on which the dog has access in a sanitary condition that will not create a health hazard or cause odors that will offend neighbors or persons that may pass in the street or will attract flies or vermin. So that is already in ordinance for a private property owner to take care of their dog waste. So that ends it for the animal ordinance. The Parks and Recreation ordinance is section 93 of the Code of Ordinances. Currently, section 93.03 of the Parks and Recreation ordinance provides it shall be unlawful for persons to have dogs, cats, horses, or mini bikes in any public park in the township. The board has contemplated allowing dogs and cats in the township, so I would propose changing that section to read as follows. It shall be unlawful for persons to have animals except dogs licensed in accordance with Chapter 90 and cats on a suitable leash or mini bikes in any public park in the township. Treasurer Dorshevitz brought this up to me. I kept the original language in the first draft of this, which basically just said no horses or mini bikes. Treasurer pointed it out, well, that would allow people, if they want to ride a camel or other animal into public park. So I changed it to, instead of horses, I changed it to animals except dogs that are licensed and cats that are both on a suitable leash.
Suitable leash.
Yes. With respect to the suitable leash, that would go to the park rules. Current Park Rule 13 provides possession of animals in township parks is prohibited under the township ordinance. The change that I propose to comport with the amendment to section 90.03 to permit licensed dogs and cats on a suitable leash would be as follows. Possession of animals except dogs licensed in accordance with Chapter 90 and cats on a suitable leash of no greater than blank feet in length, and cats on a suitable leash of no greater than blank feet in length in township parks is prohibited under the ordinance. The length of the leash is a discretionary consideration for the board, and I would like guidance on that issue also.
As you know, I am a cat person, and there are devices out there where cats can be carried in a backpack type format or in a carriage. Animal carriages are becoming quite common for cats and for convalescent elderly dogs.
Okay, I could change leash to animal carriage or other, otherwise.
Suitable animal carriage device.
Or cage. You could carry the cat in a cage,
Well,
right?
that's where it gets to be suitable,
So
you
then
know.
they can't use a leash?
No, they could, I mean, if, good luck.
After they take them out of the cage.
Yeah,
Good luck keeping the cat inside.
yeah,
the leash.
cats and leashes don't mix, but,
Yeah, they
Yeah.
make
but
cat
these
leashes
carriage,
that
these
don't work.
carriers are becoming
I
quite
can
common.
make
like to
whatever
resolve
change
the-
the board wants.
Pardon me?
I can make whatever change the board
Yeah.
wants.
I recommend we do 8 feet for the leash, because a 6-foot tall person uses up a lot of the leash already, so it gives you the flexibility to have a dog on a normal leash.
It's A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
Exactly.
And Kevin, I know Sarah Wiesel has done some research on leashes, so I know you should just check with her. She's done quite a bit of research on leashes, and I know that there are some that are not as safe as others, so just talk to her about that.
Okay. Might get some input, but I mean, we have talked more about this than we have of major projects. Can we make a decision and go for it? We're going,
Sounds like the last.
Well, we could certainly have Kevin make changes, and please email him. Don't do a group chat, but, you know, you can email him individually, and we can try to have something in front of us. Maybe at the next meeting. The 2 weeks is pretty tight, but maybe we could have a first reading.
I think we got this worked out.
With the understanding that there would be a second reading and minor changes can be made between first and second.
So the question is 3 dogs or 4?
I vote for.
3-dog night or 4-dog
Might have a
night?
3-dog night. So what's a dwelling? So I can have more than 4 dogs in a dwelling, or how does that work, Kevin?
It's defined as a kennel, right? If you have.
Anything
Yeah,
over 4, more than
kennel-
4.
And you need a kennel license.
Right.
Right.
So the answer's gonna be more than 4?
I don't know.
That's what I want.
I would say
It
that.
seems like a lot of
You
dogs.
said 4 only, so that.
No, it's, the wording is
More.
either more than 3 or more than 4.
The question is, do we require a kennel license for 4 dogs or more, or 5 dogs or more?
No, it's, I thought we're 4. It
You
was
said-
3, the choices were 3 or 4.
No, the
More than
choices are
3 or more than
3 or
4.
more than 4.
More than 3 or more than 4.
Right. It's been a long day. I started early this morning.
Okay.
So I say more than 4.
That's a kennel. You mean 4,
4 or more? I mean,
just 4.
How
Under-
many dogs
under-
are we gonna allow
Under
before
5,
it's a
under
kennel?
5,
How many dogs can a person have and not be a kennel?
under
4.
5.
4,
You could have 4 dogs,
Yes,
and not be a kennel.
and not be a
you're
kennel.
not.
so 16 legs total?
Well,
Whichever
some
way you
dogs have
want to
one
count
leg.
it.
It's a lot of
They've been
cleanup, a
injured.
lot of food. Man. Okay.
So,
So just put that in there for now. Kevin.
okay,
What are you gonna put in?
4 dogs.
more than 4.
More than 4. Great, I think that's good.
Is a kennel.
So Kevin, try to have a first reading draft ready for us at the next meeting.
I will.
All right, and then also we'll take a fresh look at the park. Were there any revisions that we would need to make to the park rules? But the park rules can be changed by resolution after the second reading of the ordinance.
I'd like to move on that park rule change as quickly. The weather's getting warm.
Yeah, well, weather's been warm all year.
You could do the park rule resolution contemporaneous or after the second reading of the changes to the ordinance.
Okay,
Thank you, Kevin.
thank you, Kevin. All right, moving on to public comment again, limited to 3 minutes. Very good, let's go on to board comments. Oh, yes, Mr. Harris. You want to get your shot clock going?
Sure.
How you doing? Robert Harris. I was watching the late news the other night. It was Click on Detroit with Devin Scillian. Excuse me. And I learned that our quiet little half-sized township is getting sued for $10 million by Mike Cox, representing Northfield Downs. Mike's one of the sharpest lawyers I've ever met, and as you know, was ex-attorney general of the state of Michigan. I'm not going to talk about the CBA or the PUD, but about the lawsuit, but what the lawsuit tells us about the workings of Plymouth Township. Let me read some excerpts from the lawsuit. It's 53 pages. Heisey explicitly told John and Mike Carlo that both the Planning Commission and Board of Trustees would absolutely vote as Heisey directed them regarding any necessary approval. He was able to secure unanimous vote from the Planning Commission and likely 6-1 vote from the Board of Trustees, noting that one vote he would not be able to secure would be Trustee Chuck Kermy, whom Heisey described as his nemesis. And it goes on. Heisey had, quote unquote, complete control of the regulatory process. He brought his own team to the Township Board of Trustees when he was elected, and so the Township Board was made of trustees who needed, made up of trustees who needed Heisey's support and were Heisey's political animals. And it goes political, anyway, so it goes on. This is a dumpster fire to me. It's embarrassing. It seems two things, that everything Gary Heitman touches results in a lawsuit. Myers, and now this. Anybody with any business background, not lawyers, knows desirable companies have their own location experts. And I've been involved in 2 companies that do that. They don't need someone from a municipality or township enticing them to come. They only need to negotiate the amount of tax abatements they can receive. So there's no need for an economic director. Second, this validates my thoughts about our trustees. The right questions don't get asked. You guys, Bob, Jerry, Jen, Audrey, John, you are elected to represent the citizens of our township. Let me finish. To do your due diligence on matters, talk to your constituents, do your homework, not be puppets.
How
And one
dare
more
you
thing,
call us a
Terry.
puppet?
All right, we're done, we're done.
You
Your
are-
your time is up. Have a seat.
You're not going to be allowed to call me a puppet.
Your time is
Thank
up. Your time is up. All right, anybody else? Very good. Mr. Stewart, let's start off with board comments.
I wanted to not comment at all, but I do want to thank Lieutenant Krebs, and I checked with Lieutenant Kudra. And we received a wonderful, I mean that sincerely, environmental cleanup of Phoenix and Wilcox Lake and dredging. And then somebody got very concerned about a missing 13-year-old girl. But thanks to lieutenants, that is a planned dredging, cleaning out, and restoration of the lakes. I don't think we can emphasize those words enough. So,
I'll talk about that.
you know, let's go onward and forward.
Yeah, I'll talk more about that project,
Okay.
John, so thank you.
I'm done.
Okay. Ms. Buckley, just make sure your thing is on. You're all set? You're all set?
Yeah.
Okay, Bob?
It was bugging me for the last half hour because I had a long day, but I looked it up. OPEB is about 29%. And we just last week sent in a check for $250,000 this year to help pay it down. Remember
That was all OPEB, or it was allocated between OPEB and
No,
pension?
all OPEB.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so
Yeah,
that was
budget,
the original
yeah.
resolution.
Yeah.
So we're moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. Anything else, Bob? How are the bills coming in, tax bills coming in?
We're finished collecting for the season. The delinquencies were sent over to Wayne County. We collected about 98.8% between summer and winter paid. So and we did great. So no issues.
We haven't had any foreclosures in the township for quite some time. I mean, do you anticipate?
We had
What does it
two
look like?
last year.
We had two, yeah.
And one of them was on there's a weird piece of land. It's like a 5-foot strip. Over in the area off of Ann Arbor Trail by 275. Gilbert Street, I think it's called. And anyway, they foreclosed on that. We didn't exercise our right of first refusal.
Okay, very good.
Sorry, this was a 5-foot strip near
It's like a
Gilbert
5-foot
and
strip.
I-275?
Yeah, if you look on that street, it's like a 5-foot strip that was separately deeded. It's a weird.
Probably
thing.
left over from MDOT.
It could have been, but nobody paid for it, and nobody wanted it, and the county didn't want it, and
So the adjoining neighbors will eventually buy it or annex it.
they just probably already have annexed it. I didn't take the time to go over and look.
It's an independent homeland at this point.
Yeah,
right?
it's a sovereign nation.
Yeah.
But you could only stand in it because it's not wide enough to sit down.
All right, trustee Monahan.
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay, trustee Kermy.
Maybe I missed it, but can we make sure that the hazardous waste day is front and center on the website? I may have missed it, but I couldn't find it.
No, it's, we'll put that up, and I know that the township newsletter is coming out this
May
week.
6th.
Yeah.
What date is the township hard copy newsletter coming out?
It's supposed to come out this week. We can
this
never
week?
decide what, it's up to them and the mail service as to when it
It's
actually is.
already printed.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Clerk.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. As you know, we just had an election. Again, we had another very successful election. Myself and my team have run 8 elections here, and it seems like each year we make good improvements on things. And once again, we had an election where the precincts balance, the AV counting board balance, and even though we had the challenges of instituting a new process of 9 days of voting, and the state was a little late in coming to us with good procedures and policies for operating that. And we were very limited in time and training people for use of the direct online voting through the qualified voter file. I was able to assemble a good team of people and enough people to train. So in the presidential primary, this is paid for entirely by the state. And so I use it as an opportunity to bring in a good number of people to train appropriately and then be able to evaluate those people to know who we're going to use in future elections. That's important because really, it doesn't matter how many people voted in the presidential primary. The big show is the November election. You're going to have probably north of 90% of the people voting in this election. It's going to be very contentious, and so it was important to have my staff and people get properly acclimated to the new process of 9 days voting. The facility that we used worked out very well. There was plenty of parking. The accessibility was good throughout the township for people coming there. And then we had, of course, the regular voting day, which is a long and arduous day for everyone because it takes 16 to probably 18 hours to accomplish that task. But once again, our good volunteers did a wonderful job. The staff did a great job. I can't thank Paula Jefferson and Denisa Terrell, Deb Dooley, Ashley Sanders, and then Joseph, who's our temporary worker, but he also does some of our video work that came in very handy in operating that process. So considering all the changes that were made in both in the Constitution and in state law enacted by the legislature, we had a very smooth, very successful operation, and the people of Plymouth Township should be very proud of the clerk's department and the people that work in it. So thank you very much.
Okay. So Jerry, thank you again for all of your hard work on this election, and the staff. We really appreciate all of their efforts, and we also we certainly made national news with the installation of fake cameras at the voting site, and that individual did turn himself in, thanks to the media, the outreach that we did through the police department. And so that individual has now been handed over to the Attorney General's office, who will be deciding what to do next under state law. So thanks. I'll wrap things up here. I just find it ironic that a resident came up here tonight and called this group of individuals puppets. I find it ironic that a resident would come forward and defend the Carlo brothers and Mike Cox. That's very interesting, taking a position against the best interests of your community. So I will certainly make note of that. The Salem Sewer Project will be having a public hearing on that. The state of Michigan will be on Thursday, April 4th at 6 o'clock, starting at, it'll be at Northridge Church. The first hour will be a public information session, followed by the public hearing at 7 o'clock. And so just stay tuned to our Facebook page and our website for more information on that. You can go online right now on the Eagle website, and you can look at all of the papers, documents, and studies that were submitted by the applicant and review those for yourself. They're pretty technical, but they're certainly worth a good read on that. We're going to have some really exciting news coming out, I think, in the next 24 to 48 hours regarding the MITC corridor. I met today with an existing Plymouth Township business along with the MEDC, Gary Roberts, who is our MITC consultant, and yes, Gary Heitman, who knows what he's doing and knows the business and was also at the table. We're moving an existing company over to the old DeHoco site. This will be located behind the Myers facility. And there will be also some other bigger news coming out tomorrow, not from this office, but maybe from the state or from Washington, D.C. on some other projects in the township. We also are having a VIP enrollment day. Chief Nitel, could you just come up briefly and give us an idea? What is this all about, and how does this affect our residents?
Yeah,
what does it stand for first?
Vulnerable or impaired persons. This gives folks an opportunity, not only in the township, we're partnering with Building Bridges as well as the Miracle League of Plymouth. We hope in the future to also to partner with the school district. Folks can come in with their children, age 2 to 26, who are vulnerable or impaired. Their fingerprints are taken with consent from the parents. They are registered with us, and then we're in the process of purchasing a device. It's similar to a large cell phone, and if we have a missing individual, we locate somebody that they can put their fingerprint on that device, and we can immediately identify who they are. So this is a program, I believe we're the only second community in Wayne County that's rolling out this program in partnership with the Michigan State Police. It's a very new program for the Michigan State Police. This is something also that we look in the future that that we would work with our senior community. If we have folks with dementia and different things like that, that we could also use this program down the road. Not currently, but we're focusing on folks that have challenges.
Okay, very good. And this is open to all, everybody, or just township?
Yes, Township Hall right in this, here from 12 to 2, we'll have the registration. The state police will be here, and then we'll be out at Building Bridges from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock to register folks. I'm sorry?
What date is that again?
That's going to be Thursday.
Thursday, okay.
Yeah, 2 days from now.
So we can come and watch? No?
Some privacy issues, I don't know.
Oh, All right.
I
So,
mean,
anyway.
we'll be here, and we're gonna be looking
Yeah.
for people that are interested in the
Thank you.
program.
Okay, thank you, Chief. As John Stewart pointed out, Wayne County Parks this year is finally getting around to doing the cleanup of Wilcox Lake and Phoenix Lake. This has been delayed for a while for a variety of reasons, but if you drive out there today, you'll see that they are beginning some of the site prep, putting up fencing and whatnot. So there's going to be just a public information hearing, not a hearing, that's too strong, but just a public information session here in this room at Township Hall on March 28th from 7 to 8 p.m. Friends of the Rouge will be here with the Alliance of Rouge Communities, Wayne County Parks, and some of the other governmental entities that are sponsoring this project. It's going to be a multi-million-dollar cleanup, and it's going to be very disruptive. They just completed a similar project downstream in Livonia. You may have seen big bags of junk that was dewatering on the side of the road. So this is going to be a very similar, very worthy project, but it's going to be kind of messy throughout the summer.
What do they do with those bags?
Well, they dredge the lake. They put these bags out. The water then just leaches out over time, and then they take the bags and dispose of it. Probably, I don't know how they. I'm not sure how they. Hopefully not a landfill. Yeah, hopefully not a landfill, but they would have. I'm sure they have to comply with a variety of state and federal regulations on that. Let's look at our next agenda. We meet again on the 26th. It looks like right now we're going to have another one of our 6 o'clock study sessions, a closed session at 6 o'clock on March 26th. This is regarding an employment matter that is still developing, but I would just ask that we set aside March 26th at 6 o'clock for a closed session. Then, again, in no particular order, we have the Brownfield Plan Amendment number 5 for the MITC. This is to address the Myers site. We will have some appointments to boards and commissions, budget adjustments. We will be extending the HVA ambulance contract through the end of this calendar year. We will have possibly AMI. This is the advanced metering system for the water meters. Some recommendations on that, and the annual treasurer's report. I cannot wait for that.
Tickets go on sale tomorrow.
Okay, amen. All right, I need a motion to adjourn. Motion by John, is there a second? Second by Jerry Vorva. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.